Picard himself asked that question.
Yeah.
Beverly, the accent.
Yeah.
He studied in London. He never shook it. Oh, okay. I was sitting there going, thank you.
Yeah, I know. Because it's like, I'm sorry, accents aren't genetic.
Nothing to do with the story, but just little touches like that.
Yeah.
It just makes it better.
I am very proud of the fact that I and Nimoy and Shatner are all Aries late March babies. Our birthdays are all very close. I hope I'm not as arrogant and dickish as Shatner was, because I think he matured and grew out of that. And I'd be honored to be like Nimoy, who I told you my Nimoy story, right?
I don't think you did. Let's hear it. This is the week for it.
I don't have a Shatner story.
Yet.
Yeah, that's true. My brother famously...
Well, yeah, he kind of did have a Shatner story.
Yeah, I told you about that one. That's his real serious brush with, I can't even deal with a celebrity. But in my case, this goes back to the bookstore in L.A. Again, folks, if you want to have your endless celebrity sighting stories, just live in L.A. I mean, this is all it is. You go to Ralph's, and it's like, oh, famous person buying yogurt. Well, how you doing? In this case, I was working at the Brentanos in Century City, and I had a flu, actually. It wasn't even a cold. I did not feel good, but I needed the money. And I'm just behind the cashier, and Leonard Nimoy is my next customer, and he goes, "You sound terrible."
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm kind of sick. And he goes, "What are you taking for it?" Like, we had this conversation that, I mean, and of course I'm on the inside going, I cannot believe I'm talking to Leonard Nimoy, but it was just a normal conversation. I didn't bring up Star Trek ever, but he was so genuinely concerned, got me right there in the heart.
That's so
like,
cool.
Yeah. And I was like, well, just over the counter stuff. That's all I do. He goes, okay. He goes, I know this is flaky, some of the new agey things, but he goes, the echinacea, a lot of the herbal things, this is what you... And I was like going, I'm getting medical advice from Mr. Spock.
So he was into the herbal stuff, huh?
Well, he was just saying, like, there are other things you could be taking, which you probably haven't considered, and they work for me. So I was like, oh, I will. I'll look into that. Thanks a lot. And he goes, I hope you feel better. I was like, thank you so much. So I had a very human interaction with him.
That's wild.
Just a couple years before, when I was in San Francisco, I had almost the exact same conversation with Scott Thompson of New Kids.
Yeah.
The New Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
Which I'm a huge fan of as well.
Yeah.
I mean, not perhaps to the level of Nimoy, but I was at work and I was sick. And Scott Thompson, who no one was bothering, and it was very cool, but he just goes, "Oh, you are sick." I was like, "Yeah, what are you taking?" So I've had two celebrities worried about my health, and both very, very cool, nice people. So there you go.
Crazy.
But anyway, I love both of them, regardless of whatever they were like on set, because they're icons, and I'm a Trek fan from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
I do get into those nerd arguments, and I'm sure, or not arguments, debates. You probably do too. Like, are you an original series guy, a next gen guy? Are you some outlier where you're like, no, actually, Enterprise, that's my favorite?
I don't choose favorites. I've been watching Trek since I was a little kid. My dad got me into it. My dad was.
I love the idea that your dad,
yeah. Well, he was never
just sitting there going like, I like it.
Here's why he loved it. It was because it offered this vision of what he thought the future would be. My dad had almost H.G. Wells-esque, visions of what the future was going to be like. Not quite to the social utopia extremes that H.G. Wells was into.
But he did see some sort of ideal.
Dad really, that was one of his missions as a scientist, was to make the world a better place for everybody.
Oh my God!
He was passionate about that stuff. So when he was really into Gene Roddenberry's vision. Now I say that he wasn't anywhere like a nerd about the show. He didn't know who Gene Roddenberry was.
Yeah.
He didn't, he wasn't, he's not going to have, he wouldn't be, he would probably lose his patience with conversations that we have about the degree of nerdiness. But he loved Trek. He introduced it to me when I was a little kid. He said, "Look, this is what things might be like in the not too distant future, where we've got people traveling outer space to other planets, and there's people from different races different countries working together on the same command bridge." And he pointed out, that was one of the things he pointed out to me. Look, there's
she's from Africa, a Russian, he's from Russia, and you've got a Scot in the engine room, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the fact that there was a Russian and a black person, together on the same crew was a big deal back then.
And some dude with fucked up ears. I have no idea what that was about.
Yeah. So, but then I watched Trek was in a syndication back when we were kids in the 70s. So it would be on channel 26 or something.
Yes. And I was about I talked with John about, just because I think such things are local, but also of their day, like post video boom and everyone having box sets of DVDs and whatever. But do you remember the 24-hour Star Trek-a-thon they would do in Houston once a year?
I was about to bring that up. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
That's where I got, a lot of my first, a lot of those episodes the first time I saw them.
Once a year. And it was usually around summer, because I knew that it'd be kids as, well. Man, did you ever make it all the way through?
Probably not. No, I mean, even now, I'm not as deep a Trek nerd as you might believe based on what I just said. There's still plenty of episodes, even from the original series, I still haven't seen.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure. I may have seen all of them once or twice, but I probably don't remember. Sometimes I'm reading through episode synopses. Is that how you say it? Synopses? Synopsis.
No, I think that's the plural. Synopses.
And there's some episodes I'm like, oh, I don't think I've seen that
one. To be fair, at the end of the day, all of these things are TV shows that had to spit out a certain amount of episodes, and you're going to get a good show is considered one that has a high ratio of good episodes, because Trek has plenty of bad episodes. And so does Next Gen. Next Gen lasted longer, and had those same 23 episode seasons or close to 30 episode seasons. And you're like, Jesus, there's going to be a lot of filler. It's going to be great, and then there's going to be a lot that you're like, going, oh, we could have avoided this altogether. It's this one. So I love Trek, but I'm not a guy who sits there and picks apart every script and goes, look at how genius all of this is. Because there's a lot. It's a cheesy TV show.
There's quite a bit of crap.
Moments of real high quality. So I love them all. I always would pass out around 3 a.m. doing the 24-hour Trek, and wake up around 6. So it was usually about 3 hours where I missed some episodes, but it was almost always right around the time they got to the one about Spock's brain, where Spock's brain is literally and it's always like, and I think they did program like that, start putting the really, really lame ones on late. And then I almost always woke up to Devil in the Dark, which is the one with the Horta, where he communicates, Spock mind melds with the big rock.
I like that one.
Oh, it's a really good episode. Yeah. And John and I, having done the Coal Shack, the Night Stalker podcast, we're like, oh my God, I totally forgot one of the Night Stalker episodes is a full rip of that. I mean, it's the same plot, except for no mind meld. The children.
Oh, okay.
Pain. In Coal Shack, the Night Stalker, they dig down, making some underground complex, and they've disturbed some prehistoric creatures protecting its eggs. And you're like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, they just ripped it.
Both of those, the Spock's brain and the Horta episode, remind me of this. When I was working at this video production company I was working for in the early 90s, they had one of the earliest Windows PCs there. I can't remember what we used it for. I rarely ever used it. It was basically just sitting there with.
They used it as a prop.
It was there for some reason, but I went out. It wasn't my computer. It was just in the office. But I went out and bought the Star Trek screensaver just so I could run it on this PC. It was actually really neat. They had these little, really obscure little animated bits. It wasn't actual stills from the movie. These were little animated things that they did. So there was
the same
just wandering in, randomly. So Spock from Spock's brain comes shuffling on the screen at one point.
His brain is gone.
The Horta moves across the screen, and I would sit there as I was working. I would allow myself to get distracted by it.
Yeah, I had that same one.
Pain.
I also had the Monty Python
cool
screensaver thing where random, like, the foot would come down, or a Terry Gilliam animation just pop up. No, I love this stuff. When I was a kid, Mego, which is the doll company, I showed you the new Mego retro Superman doll.
Right.
And because they're in cloth suits and they're tallish, I will continue to call them dolls and not action figures. Okay, anyway. I had their Kirk and Spock from the 70s when I was a kid. And man, that was awesome. I always wanted the Enterprise set. They had the bridge, and it had this the teleporter.
Oh,
the transporter, and you would spin it.
Yeah.
And it would, the dolls here, and it would spin, and then it would hide them. So then it was like, and I was like, oh, I want that. So
one of my friends must have had that, or maybe it was just a commercial. It sounds like that is ringing a really loud bell in my nerdy
brain.
Ding,
ding, ding, ding, ding. Yeah, sorry. Good reaction shot. Yeah, that should be your little author photo thing for YouTube.
Wait, it's on one of these.
You're digging.
Oh, damn it! This isn't it. I was trying to dig up the Power Records Star Trek.
Oh
one.
Yeah, did you ever give those a listen?
No, my turntable is still broken.
Oh,
someday.
Hear that, listeners?
Oh, wait, here they are.
Help Chad.
There you go.
Fix his turntable. Yeah,
both. It's in both covers. He's going. God damn this job.
Either that, or he may suffer from migraines, and at which point Spock goes, "What are you taking for that?" And then it becomes a whole thing.
So you and we're talking about the other shows. When Next Generation came out, I was actually very skeptical of it first, and I didn't watch it really for the first couple seasons. It was you.
What?
It was you who got me into it, and I don't know if you remember. There was one of the many TV marathon sessions that we had back in those days.
Yeah.
Was watching you getting me caught up on Next Generation Trek.
Which that's tough, because if you were 2 seasons out.
Yeah, because it was starting to get good around then, I think.
Well, I will say, like everything else, the first season of any show, even classic shows, you're like, they're finding their way. Like during the pandemic, I did lots of rewatches of shows just because what else am I going to do? So I rewatched The Office. I rewatched Parks and Rec. A lot of comedies because I wanted to enjoy that. Seinfeld and so forth. And you're like, every great show, it's like that first season's wonky. They're almost never great right off the bat. X-Files, wonky first season. What are we doing here? We're not quite sure. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, kind of a rocky first season. And then they just crystallize, they figure it out. Which is why... Exactly. Which is why Fox really should have stopped their whole thing of canceling good shows that could have been great shows after one season, like Firefly and things like that. But anyway, so yeah, I remember when it premiered, I was still in high school. I think it was my senior year, because it wasn't 87.
Yes.
And I was at my girlfriend's house, and I remember the first episode. It was like, she was okay with watching it. It was me going, there's a new Star Trek. And there had been like that press buildup. There had been interviews on Entertainment Tonight, and there had been magazine articles about meet your new crew, and this is a bald British guy as your new captain. I'm like, yeah, okay, great.
Right.
But I remember watching that first episode and thinking, oh, this is great. I mean, I just loved it from the get-go, because they were moving the story forward. Now it's all about prequels and nonsense, but I love the idea of like, here's what happened after Kirk and all that. And I thought the effects were pretty amazing for the time.
For TV, especially.
For TV, yeah. I thought the new ship looked great. I was fully on board. I thought Data was an interesting character, and I was glad to see Worf like, ooh, the Klingons, they've worked out some sort of peace agreement. Now they're in the Federation. Oh my God.
Yeah. But
I actually said it just like that. Oh my God.
I was just as skeptical. I remember when it reminded me, thinking about it now reminds me of when Saturday Night Live switched over, like when the original cast finally left and they introduced the first new cast with Joe Piscopo. And I remember them showing the first cast wasn't even really a photo. It was like a video portrait of them kind of standing there and posing.
Denny Dillon.
I remember looking at these people. Why am I supposed to care about these people? I have no idea who they are.
Saturday Night Live, the next generation's premiere, Saturday, November 15th.
They might not be funny.
I kind of felt the same way about Trek Next Generation.
Yeah, of course. It's just you're used to a classic version, and to your mind, I'm sorry, that is what I want. Thank you. I want the guys I'm familiar with. But things should be allowed to grow, which is why John always gets on my ass about how much of a stickler I am for when they do a DC movie or something. And I'm like, well, that's not my Superman. He's like, well, yeah, but the character's been around for 80 years, 80 plus, and he continues to change and evolve and grow. It's like, he's married now. He has kid now. And it's like, okay, yeah. All right, yeah. I need the core to remain true.
Right.
But that's different because that is one character being reinterpreted as opposed to them just coming in and giving us a new Superman and saying, like, here's the new guy who took over. Clark went away and he's fine. Don't worry. But now here's the new guy.
And what's interesting that we've had some of that in Star Trek. We've had classic roles get recast.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's
the reboot, which we won't talk about today, started strong. Anyway.
Yeah. And also in Strange New Worlds, they're doing it. We've already gotten a new Kirk in that one.
Man, again, I have problems with that casting, and one of the main problems I have with that, and I love Strange New Worlds, it is great.
Yeah.
But one of the main problems I have with that is, like, I don't like the idea of Kirk being so integral to early Pike and all that. I always liked the way they do it in the classic show, which is Spock is the real Pike friend, and he's breaking rules to help his old friend. And I think I liked it better where Kirk was aware of Pike, but hadn't been on the Enterprise until he took it over. So he's like, all right, I'm going to trust you, Mr. Spock, because we have to work together. Mm-hmm. But this thing with Strange New Worlds, where literally, there's his brother is on the Enterprise, and now here's Jim, and he's hanging out. I'm like, stop it.
Yeah. You're getting a little out of control there. I will say we've talked about this briefly before. I like, what's the guy who plays Pike?
Anson Mount.
Anson Mount as Pike is wonderful.
And he's a different kind of character. That's
different kind of character, and I think it works because we didn't get a whole lot of the original Pike. There's 2 episodes or one pilot, and then him in a chair. Yeah,
and then another actor.
It's not even the same actor.
Yeah, it's like
so. Yeah, so and then I don't know the actor's name who plays Spock in the show either, but he's good.
Oh yeah,
and he does enough of a respectful sort of.
He doesn't look anything like him,
of Nimoy,
but he's capturing the character well.
He's not. Yeah, he hasn't really changed the character that dramatically at all, really. So it's
except for he gets down and dirty.
Except we get him see it, just like in the movies. Yeah,
that guy's hitting some tapow like you. In fact, tapow is the sound it makes.
Tapow. The guy who played Kirk. That's the only casting I kind of took issue with this. He doesn't look like Kirk. I can let that go, but he doesn't really act like him either. It doesn't at all seem like the same character.
It's weird. This guy that they cast, kind of tall and wiry, and you're like, well, okay, that's not right, because Kirk is a fire plug. I mean, he's fit, but he's not crazy tall. And I'm sitting there going like, isn't Kirk kind of sandy blonde hair, kind of brown blonde? And they didn't even bother with that. He's just a brunette. And I'm like, why are we just accepting this guy as Jim Kirk?
Yeah, and he doesn't have at all the same kind of attitude or
it's
anything.
tough. I will say I feel bad for anyone that ever gets cast as a replacement person. I felt really bad for talk about a name I can't remember, in Solo.
Yes, that's exactly where my head went just now.
And I thought he did a really good job. He did
as good of a job, I think, as anybody could have done. And he actually did try to use some of Harrison's
a lot of the physicality and a lot of the reaction stuff, because he must have studied and studied. It's like, this is the way Harrison Ford reacts to, it's like whatever the weird facial mannerisms. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good.
One thing he did a couple of times, and it was like that sort of thing that Harrison Ford does when Leia's pissed off at him and Empire Strikes Back. Like,
also, in the tense moments, it's not just like, I gotta do. There's always kind of like oh my God, are you serious? Like, because I love how human Harrison Ford heroes always are.
Right.
It's not like they immediately snap into action because they've got it. Instead, it's like, okay, I guess. It's always like, oh shit, if this is the way it's got to be. I always love those reactions. So I thought he did a good job, but heaven help anyone that's stepping into an iconic role that has been, associated with one guy forever. A million people played Sherlock Holmes, and people will always debate who was the best Holmes and da-da-da. But there was never even Basil Rathbone, who kind of nailed it early on. But people who came later are like, it's okay. No audiences were like going, I'm sorry, man, Basil's my Sherlock. It's like, there's a lot of great Sherlock Holmeses. And so, but yeah, I mean, Kirk is one guy, is Shatner. So good luck, anybody. I thought Chris Pine did a fine job, actually.
I thought so too, yeah.
He did a really good job.
I like the whole cast.
Yeah, the whole cast. The recasting on that, great. And then, it's the story that let them down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking at you, JJ. Oh no, we're jumping on JJ again.
Which, by the way, that is the most often downloaded episode of this as a podcast. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, people, but apparently we're not political enough or being daring enough, because it's not like people going like, "Did you hear what those guys said?" I don't think we have hot takes, Chad. We got to work on how hot our takes are.
Yeah, we got room temperature takes.
They're comfy takes.
Comfy takes.
But anyway, so we're talking Trek because probably you're going to segue into Picard.
We could keep talking about all the other Trek series all day long, but yeah, we're here to talk about season 3.
Actually, we can't, because you know what? I gave up so early on most of the other spinoffs. Not that they were really bad, but Deep Space Nine, I always start over and then am so bored by season 3 that I never finish. And my friends are always like going, but season 4 is where the Dominion War starts. It's like, you got us. Worf hasn't even shown up yet. I'm like, yeah, but I was so bored.
Yeah.
And they're like, just start there. Okay.
I was kind of there with you. I'm kind of I'm happy to see that Deep Space Nine kind of has a cult following now, in a sense that it's.
Oh no! Some people think it's the best Trek because it has big storylines that Trek never did. But it does kick in after the season I give up on.
Well, it was funny. Like, I always associate they didn't do so well. This is what all the series that followed Next Generation had kind of shitty opening themes.
Oh,
and like Deep Space Nine wasn't bad, but it was just like kind of they did all these swooping shots of, instead of having a starship shooting through space, you've got a space station just sitting there. So they're like, oh,
dude, it rotates though. It rotates.
Yeah. And then the end Voyager, which is about a ship traveling home, but it's a ba 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 ba.
No, the thing is, Enterprise. Enterprises will always be the worst.
That's the worst. Oh my God.
I'm going to the stars. You can't keep me down. I'm going to fly. I don't even know. I'm not anywhere near it, but that's the quality of it.
That is definitely where they jumped the shark as far as theme music was concerned.
I don't want lyrics. I don't mind if it's set in the past that you're trying to emulate sort of rock something, but that ain't the way to do it.
Moving right along. We are now pretty much smack dab in the middle of season 3 of Picard, which I have to say is living up to the pre-release hype that I heard. Robert Meyer Burnett, who was a huge detractor, like as I was of the first 2 seasons, he put himself out on a limb saying, "Oh, trust me, this one's really good." And so far, even the most cynical of Trek critics, including the guys at Red Letter Media, have been singing this season's praises. So
Fascinating.
This last episode especially.
I enjoyed season 1 and 2. I know you got your problems with it. I didn't think they were amazing, but I just was like, oh, I'm all for elderly Picard adventures. This is fine. But this season is like, it's better than most of the movies.
It really is.
And it is exactly giving me everything I want. Mm-hmm. It's not just fan service. I mean, there is, of course, lots of things, lots of drop-ins and hints and whatever. And you're like, oh, I know what that's from. But it's mainly just continuation. And it's not just people. There are plenty of scenes of like, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time. Can I get a hug? But there's also character conflict that you want. There's new dynamics and the introduction of characters that hadn't been part of that cast. So I do love the fact that we had season 1 and 2 because 7 of 9 is now part of the Picard story. That's not her ship. That's not that whole thing. But she's great and a great addition. And we got in this season already like a wrap up for Ro. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me? Chad, are you kidding me with that?
I'm not. I totally did. That is one of many things I did not see coming. Was
no, me either.
Ensign Ro, yeah.
No, and she ain't no Ensign no more.
Well, he's not Ensign anymore. Well,
but yeah, calling her Ensign Ro is just that's what you want to say, and that stuff's great. And the character of Rafi, who from the first couple seasons. So it basically is all the people you wanted to see. And then we also, of course, have these newish characters that you've already gotten to know. It's like just a huge party.
Well, and they're
the next episode, I think, is them just sitting around eating ice cream and drinking some nice wine.
Yeah, because they've earned it.
Wine and ice cream.
Yeah. But one of the things that this season has done repeatedly, and it always amazes me, is that the writing is so good in this one, and that there literally are, not literally, but they're like the sense of crossing the T's and dotting the I's. It's very well thought out and thoughtful. Thoughtful meaning that I think Terry Metalis wrote most of it. He's like predicting the nitpicky questions that people will have.
Yes.
And they literally address them in the dialogue. This has happened several times now. There was the fact, when Jack Crusher is initially introduced and he's got a British accent, but he didn't grow up with his dad. So it's like, oh, well, that's convenient. He's got an English accent. Picard himself asked that question.
Yeah.
Beverly, the accent.
Yeah.
He studied in London. He never shook it. Oh, okay. I'm sitting there going, thank you.
Yeah, I know. Because it's like, I'm sorry, accents aren't genetic.
Nothing to do with the story, but just little touches like that.
Yeah.
It just makes it better. The other thing, too, that this was also a line that Jack Crusher had. It was later, a couple episodes later, when they have to power down all the systems on the ship to all essential systems has to be shut down. And then Picard and Jack are in the holodeck, at a bar. And I'm like, is that an essential system, the holodeck? And then Jack asks the question, are we supposed to be powering things down right now? And they have the explanation for that too. I was like,
but that explanation I thought was both brilliant and so grim. It's like it has its own backup thing, because in times when the ship is possibly going to blow up, it is like a haven for people to go and hang out somewhere safe when the ship is being blown apart. And I'm like, that's grim as fuck.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, it's like, the band playing on the Titanic. So that's why this is still up and running. And I did like that explanation. You're right. It is thoughtful. It is just very meticulously put together. And I do think it is because they're anticipating, even though Patrick Stewart's like, man, if it continues to be this good, sign me up for more. And I'm like, oh, okay, slow your roll, Grandpa. You are awesome still, but you're approaching 90. So let's be realistic. So they're anticipating this being the end, you know, the last go round of these people as a group and with that leader. And so they're taking the time that you wish they had put that kind of thought into Generations. It's like, if this is our last go around with Kirk, maybe let's not have him fall off a rusty bridge and hit some rocks and die. Maybe that's not how Kirk should go out.
Yeah, but
It was fun.
Oh, sure, the line's great.
no, I totally agree with you.
It's like, and they themselves later on, the producers are like, yeah, I don't know why we didn't have him on board a ship.
Most illogical.
It's like, I don't know why he wasn't in the captain's chair. It's like
they chose to kill him off in a really, really low budget episode of the actual show.
That's what it felt like. And also, they were also, I think in their brains, let's give him the action hero beats of like he's literally throwing punches and stuff. I'm like going, yeah, well, Shatner at that age, Shatner still to this day, amazing energy for a guy of his age, but you know, chunky dude out there throwing punches at Malcolm McDowell. Speaking of Malcolm McDowell from last week, you're like, yeah, that's not working for anybody. That's not giving us Kirk that we want. It's like, I don't want to see chunky Kirk on a horse. And I'm sure he was like going, I'll come back, but I get to ride a horse.
That might be the title of the episode.
Yeah.
Chunky Kirk on a horse.
Which is the name of a particular kind of salsa that I've been putting together. I'm going to start marketing Chunky Kirk on a horse.
But speaking of Easter eggs and all this stuff, and Kirk, that was one of. Did you catch that moment in the most recent episode?
I did not. I know that the Daystrom Institute scene, as well as the ship museum scene, both of them I know had to be just ridiculously full of Easter eggs, but I didn't catch that. I of course knew that the physical body thing that was being stolen, obviously I'm like, yeah, that's Picard. And they do the tribble, the genetically modified tribble. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I'm like, yeah all the stuff with Data where it's Lord, Data, B4, Sung, all the personalities. And I'm like, yeah. And what a treat that was for Brent Spiner. He's like, oh my God, this is great. I get to just shift from one to the other, to the other, to the other. Great.
That was amazing. Not only was that moment just I knew that Brent Spiner was coming back, and the trailers led us to believe that it was going to be Lore.
Yes.
From his expression, the expression on his face when we see him briefly in that. And we do have Lore. I mean, Lore is in there. But I was not expecting them to do Data again, because we've killed Data twice now. Twice. Yep.
So, and I love that Picard goes, I have watched this man
die twice. Again, the writer's going, I see you.
Yeah.
So, but again, this whole thing of having Data back in a golem body, the same kind of positronic body, whatever that Picard is in now, was a question I was asking at the end of season 1. I was like, why don't they just put Data in one of these bodies? And plus, I didn't buy the whole thing. I didn't like them bringing Data back just to kill him again. I thought that was a really cheap shot against our emotions.
I kind of saw it.
And I didn't think it was in his character. Data is pure curiosity.
Yeah.
I don't think he would want. I want to see what dying's like. No, you want to get out of this computer and into a body like Picard has. That just didn't make any sense.
Well, they've done it.
The writers have done
and they came up with a good excuse for why he's old.
Yeah,
and it's basically Sung going like,
they set it up. Yeah,
it's not just the wisdom that he accumulated through knowing humans. It's like there's something about a physical decline. There's something about a real aging form. It's like that will also be information for him. It's like it is like, I'm curious about what dying is like. I'm curious to know what aging is like, winding down consecutively with my human friends. Come on.
Yeah.
And so that's great.
They did. I mean, and to be fair, in season 1, they did kind of try to dress it in that sentiment that he wanted to see. I want to experience death is basically what his character was saying in the moment. That idea just conflicts with the character of Data himself, because he wants he wants to learn and experience, and you can't do that if you're dead. So
but
they
may have
really
had all this in mind at the beginning. I mean, I will say that they supposedly kind of plotted these 3 seasons out all together. Michael Chabon, was in that writer's room, and
Terry Matalas did write, I think, at least the first episode of each of the first 2 seasons. But clearly, he should have been. I think he should have had the reins to the show running anyway from the get go. He just has a much better sense. You think he's
the Dave Filoni of Trek?
Yeah, I think he is now. He really does seem to have a really solid grip of these characters.
If it continues to be this good, but the one thing I want, and you've heard me say it before, stop with the motherfucking prequels, man. Move forward.
Move forward. Yeah.
Oh, drives me nuts.
That scene with Data, that again totally caught me off guard because I was not expecting to see Data in this season, and to have that moment where he say, "Oh, I thought it was Lore." And we can see it's Laura. It's Laura and B4 and Sung, the original Sung, are all in this brain. But the first character we talk to is Data. He wakes up, and I'm thinking, I'm already losing it. I'm like, oh my god, he's going to look at Kirk and say Captain, and he looks at Kirk and he says Captain. Sorry, yes, thank you. God. He's going to look at Picard and say, and address him as Captain.
This doesn't make any sense.
What are you doing here, Kirk? Yeah. He looks at Captain Picard, looks at Admiral Picard and addresses him as Captain. And I just started bawling. I was like,
"No,
my god, oh my god, that was absolutely incredible."
What I was going to say is this whole season's been good, and we knew that things would, and they did a very good job of building. One to one to one. Like this episode, we get a little bit of this. I did predict Worf, by the way. I did predict Worf as being Rafi's handler.
Oh, okay.
I was like going. The female voice thing, the female automatic voice, I'm like, that's a disguise. And who else would be running, like special spy ops would be our main man. I was like, yeah, it's going to be Worf. It's going to be cool. And it was Worf. Yeah, it was right. But they've been seeding. And then they get to this episode. What was it? 5? No, 4? The most recent one?
Most recent one was 6, I think.
Oh, 6. Okay. Yes, the bounty. Okay. Yeah. That was number 6. But basically, that episode was almost too much because I was like, it was body blows. Body blow, body blow, body blow, body blows. And in a good way. I mean, if it had just been an episode where Geordi finally shows up, which I was so, happy for. And I like how kind of a, not badass, but just bureaucratic, like, dude, I will turn you motherfuckers in and that kind of stuff. I'm like, wow, that's not as chummy as we all hoped. But it gets there. And his daughters, great, because we already knew the one and the other one who's actually his daughter.
His real daughter.
That was great. And they're dynamic. And then Jack Crusher hitting on both of them. That's kind of fun.
It's a nice tie-in too. I mean, nice attention to detail that the names they use for his daughters are the names that were mentioned in the last episode of the Next Generation. Episode.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even make that
connection.
Yeah. So if that had been what was added to that episode, that'd be great. They go to the ship museum, and it's, even though that is a cheesy way to do it, with 7 just quizzing Jack Crusher, the guy who doesn't want anything to do with Star Trek because of his father, but she's sitting there going, and that ship? Which one is that? That's goofy, but everyone in the audience wants to go to that museum. So them going like, oh, and he goes, oh, that's Kirk's Enterprise. You think I don't know that? I'm like, oh, and then the bounty itself. And they're like, finally, tell us what happened with the goddamn bird of prey.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, brought back the whales and all that. He's like, we know all these stories because it's historic Starfleet stuff.
Yeah, I love that. That's the first thing he says. Oh yeah, the whales. Like,
yeah, yeah. And so of course that is, and then of course gets to the Voyager, which I don't believe that he would not know. I know it was also, she could say, well, that's a Voyager. It's the one that went farther than any of them, and that was my home. I'm like, you would know the Voyager. That's huge. That'd be like the Titanic coming back, and everyone going like, wow, it finally docked.
Yeah, I could see him like missing that on the news or something. Yeah, the Voyager zone. Maybe. I don't know. But that was a nice, because that is the whole idea of the Fleet Museum is such a fan servicey idea. And I thought when they showed up there, like, they're on the run and people are looking for the Titan. So I thought, oh, they're going to take one of these old ships, and it's going to be like total fan service. They're going to take a recreation of their Picard's Enterprise or something like that, or the original Enterprise or something, had just run off with one of these museum ships.
But no, stealing the cloaking device.
They just take the cloaking device from one of the old ships, which was a nice touch, and it was a nice sort of understated way to use that in a and
I like that way. The effect of the cloaking, they actually start it from inside, which you've never seen before. It's like, oh, that's weird, but it's the same effect. I thought it's like they didn't jazz it up. They're like, no, this is what cloaking has looked like since those movies, so they do it exactly the same. And I'm like, oh, cloaking device. Yeah, I sang that at the TV. Alexa did not understand what I was singing. Cloaking device. I need to work on the bridge. But anyway, so I need to work on the bridge.
Yeah.
But so I loved all that. Then Daystrom. And when you get to Daystrom, again, it's all this stuff I'm sure I'm missing in the background where they just like did that. Yeah. And apparently it's Kirk's body, right? That's...
Well, yeah, I had to wind it back a couple of times because I was like, what? Because it's kind of hard to make out on the screen unless you're like up really close to the screen. But they do a little musical cue to let you know that it's Kirk. And I thought, wait a minute, was that supposed to be Kirk? And I went around it back again. I was like, oh, it is. And I ran it back, wanted one more time back just to make sure I wasn't, getting it wrong.
Now I kind of want to go back and rewatch.
I think maybe you should.
Okay.
But that makes me wonder if it probably not. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we never
address that again. Yeah.
Right. In this season or whatever.
Or there'll be a novel that'll be written in quotes by Mr. Shatner.
Yeah.
And ghost written by Mr. Fella guy.
But we do find out right after that Picard's body is there too. His actual biological body is held in some kind of storage. So we don't really see, because we see Picard's body literally, but we see like it's sort of a schematic of Kirk, like his skeleton or something, and a graphic. So it's not really sure. It is his DNA they've stored there? I mean, what is it?
Maybe.
Exactly.
Well, maybe that was also their way of saying, are we going to try to do a life cast of, again, chunky 65-year-old Kirk or whatever from Generations?
Yeah.
Or are we just going to say, we got some DNA of Kirk if we need to rebuild them at some point? And maybe they'll do something with it, maybe not. But it is another thing like, of course, that also is pretty grim. Means, hey, are you a famous Starfleet captain? We're going to keep your body.
Yeah.
You'll have nothing to say about it.
I'm kind of torn on that. It was just like, it'd be kind of cool if they,
of course,
somehow we see Kirk again, but at the same time, enough already.
Here's the thing. Well, here's the thing. Here's my prediction, and it's a wide swing. So Shatner will not be with us forever, and that hurts. But he will give them permission. I guarantee he'll give them permission because his ego to use his likeness. 10 years from now, not just because of let's give it some space and room, but 10 years from now, he'll be gone, quite possibly. We'll have all grieved, and the technology will have gotten better, and we will fucking have a full-on CGI Kirk. But what they'll do is they'll move Kirk into the future. That will be the story, will be that Starfleet brings back its greatest captain, and we will have a CG Kirk in Starfleet future, past Picard and all those people, having brand new adventures. I guarantee that's what they'll do.
Yeah.
It'll be very fitting that Star Trek show, the sci-fi jewel in the crown, would also probably have a science fiction-y lead of a character, its lead character is computer generated, or they've digitally mapped on an actor who's walking around doing Shatner mannerisms, but they've given him Shatner's face as well. It'll happen.
Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen proof of concept already in the Book of Boba Fett with Luke. And there are rumors they're talking about doing a whole Luke Skywalker series
and
now.
Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One.
Yeah,
almost works, doesn't quite. Luke worked pretty well, and then worked better because they hired some guy off the internet who's like, I could do that better, and then yeah, you can.
They need to work on the voice. That was the only part of it I thought was clunky. Was the voice sounded too mechanical. It's funny to me because there are plenty of actors out there who can do the voices pretty well. So I don't understand why they didn't just.
I watched a documentary on Orson Welles recently that I borrowed from John. It was great. It's called Magician, and it's just the life of Orson Welles. And just as a, they're talking about his impact, his character, blah, blah, blah. And they show that scene from Ed Wood, which is still great, where Ed Wood meets Orson Welles accidentally in a restaurant. Right. And it's Vincent D'Onofrio is the body and the face. Right. And he does look perfect. And he studied the mannerisms because the eyebrows, the whole thing, the cigar, the way he's doing it, perfect. But his voice is the guy from Pinky and the Brain who did the brain, because that guy is a famous Orson Welles impersonator. And it sounds perfect. So you have the body, the guy who looks right, and then you have the right voice, and it's just lip sync. So they didn't do anything fancy like CG anything. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I bet they do the same thing. They'll find someone who can physically be Kirk. Maybe they'll have someone doing Shatner as an impression, and then the face will be CG. It sounds like a long way to go. And I also hope that Trek continues to make up new, awesome characters because they're good at it. It shouldn't always be, we just have to go back to Kirk, Spock, Bones. And I'm like, I love those guys.
And they've done it in this show. I mean, I love Jack Crusher's great. And I hope we get more of him. And I've heard talk that this one of the things that's revealed towards the end of this season is that it's really obvious that they're setting up the next show, which is going to be exactly what you're talking about, continuing into the future and not going in the past again. And we've got the characters there. We've got almost the makings of a whole new crew here. Do
you think they'll be setting up another like a Dominion War kind of thing where the extremist changelings are the new bad guys?
Possibly, yeah. I don't really care about that so much as let's get back
you don't
into
care about
Trek.
Anything, Chad. Why are we even talking?
Let's get back into Trek and actually have a crew that's out there exploring, but have it be new and not a prequel thing again. And we've got have Jack Crush join Starfleet. We continue seeing Sidney LaForge, and I forget her sister's name. She's great. I mean, they're both great.
They also, even though they're not obviously biological real sisters, I thought that they very quickly, and it's the good writing too, but they very much were believable.
Yes, absolutely.
They're back and forth about, oh God, no. Absolutely. Oh, well, you would say this, blah, 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 because I'm like, yeah, it's good stuff. And
that conversation between Sydney and Geordi, her dad, was so well written and totally understandable from his. He's just trying to protect her, and she's getting pissed. I was like,
and it's screenwriting 101. It's screenwriting 101, but the whole thing of most of the entire Picard, as in seasons 1, 2, and now 3, it is about legacy, and specifically this season, since he's met his son that he never knew. It's the parent and the child, and what do we do to protect them? Oh, I'm too old to be protected. You've got to let me go and have my own adventure and do blah, 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 blah. It's classic themes. So I was like, I like the awkward dynamic, and I do like seeing Picard being awkward because we're so used to him just being like capable and wise always. But here he's like going, I want to get to know this guy. He's pushing back, and I've never had a son, so I don't even know what to say to this guy. And it's great. And then they're sitting there in the bar having like, all right, we won't talk about your childhood or whatever. Let's just, so what's a vacation like for you? And blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, I'll tell you about this one girl I met. Yeah, tell me about that. Blah, blah, blah. Because they're both alcoholics. Blah, blah, blah. No, I thought all of that was really well done.
Yeah, and it just goes back to episode 2, which is where it really started to hook me when we get the explanation. Because you even pointed out after we saw episode 1, like, oh, it's been 20 years, exactly long enough for Picard to have a son, because we didn't really find out if it was a son until the next episode, and of course it was. And there's that great scene between Beverly and Picard there where they confront they have a sort of a confrontation about why she never told him about Jack. And it made sense. they made it, somehow they made that make sense.
It made sense, but at the same time, it also allows her, they did a good thing of where she may be wrong. Her choice may have been the wrong one, but they're like, she's like, because he's like, don't you think you should have given me the option?
The choice, right.
And don't you think you should have given him the option? And then she goes, well, I did when he got old enough, and he did not want to meet you. But it's still like, she's kind of admitting, she goes, this was how I felt I needed to protect him. Maybe it was wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, and they leave it out there. It's like, you can decide. They both have really good points. Jack has a good point. You know, I'm just really happy. Find out he actually did go to see Picard, and he kind of changed his mind at the last second.
And I liked the Beverly and Picard thing where they're filling in the years there and giving us a little glimpse into that. That was, again, we're just praising the writing a lot, but obviously the actors sell it because that crew and that cast, their chemistry has just been there from day one, and it's still there. They're all still friends, and they all hang out, and you're like, that's refreshing. So they love hanging out together. But that whole thing where it's just like, hey, we tried several times. It's like, and of course we as Next Gen watchers, we never got to see that. And I want to, but we always speculated, and it's like, hey, it's not like we didn't give it a go. Because you're like, okay, all right. So they, like grown-ups, they felt strongly towards each other, but something always got in the way. Something always ruined it. And her thing is, that was Starfleet for you. It was like, you wanted to keep going, and I kind of wanted to see what it was like to live a life. And you could never turn down Starfleet. You could never turn down the Enterprise. Like, I get it. So again, I think they fleshed everything out well while still giving, that's fan service. It's like, I've always shipped Picard and Crusher. It's like, well, they gave it a real go.
You can't have a Picard series without, the whole idea of this doing this series is fan service. So the trick is just doing it well and meaningfully. And they've done it.
That's true.
They've finally done it. And this is just to compare something to the writing in the last season, that the kind of thing that really made me uptight. That scene, and this is just an example by why they try to have they have really good character arcs and character moments in this show, season 3, whereas opposed to season 2, one of those moments where it could have been great, where you've got this really interesting bond between Alison Pill's Girardi character and this sort of Borg Queen from an alternate universe that they've teamed up with, and they've become one person. They're having conversations in their head, and there's that scene at I think it's the last episode, where Seven's been mortally wounded, and she's lying there bleeding out. And in order to save her, Girardi has to have this argument with the Queen in her head to talk the Queen into, because she doesn't have control of the body anymore. It's the Queen who's in control of the body. It was just a really uncomfortable, long drawn out scene. Plus, with the way that they approached this, I understand what they were going for, and it was great to have the Queen eventually learn empathy through being, combined with this human intelligence. But that was the moment. It's like, you've got a chance to save one of your children here. Seven used to be in the collective, and she's still kind of part of it, not part of the collective, but she's still partially Borg. She can't separate the Borgness from her completely. And instead of the Queen having this moment of this moment where she realizes, oh, okay, I know what empathy is now, I'm going to save her. She has to be talked into it by Girardi's character. Like, did you ever think about like not being evil? Maybe you could achieve what you want by not being an asshole.
I don't think that's necessarily bad writing, but I think that's
that scene.
Well, I know.
I kept expecting, like, they didn't show Seven for a long time. It's like, by the time they finish this conversation, she's going to be dead. I was like, would you just come on?
Yes, pacing is a thing, but I do think that with a character like that, it could not be a sudden realization.
Not
with
sudden,
a poor
no.
queen, it can't be her going, "You're right."
Not sudden, but they tried to cram it into that one scene.
That's true.
This is something that should have been set out through the entire series.
That is very true.
To the same moment where the queen, maybe the Girardi's like, her consciousness is not even there, and the queen goes, "Wait a minute, I have to save her because that's the right thing to do." You know, a moment. A moment where give the character its due.
Yes,
just for very simple things like Han Solo having the turn of at the end of the original Star Wars, where he finally comes back to save the day.
Yes.
That was his decision. Nobody talked him into it. He just decided he was going to do the right thing. So it wasn't like we have a cut to a scene where Chewie goes, "No, fine."
That's true. That's true. But I'm tired of you yelling.
But I just say that in comparison that this season so far has addressed all those types of concerns for me just beautifully. Like at every turn, every time I'm thinking, gosh, they could have done this so much better in the last season. They do it better in this season. But they have a moment where like, wait a minute, what's going on? And they say, it's okay. This is why this is happening. Oh, okay, cool. Let's sally forth then. You know, it's almost like an embrace. Sorry, I keep hitting the fucking mic. It's like the writers keep almost like breaking the fourth wall, going, I see you, you know, and again, hugging the audience like, I got you. It's gonna be all right.
You said, well, it's not just them anticipating what fans would say. It is also them saying everything we're doing, whether it's emotional beat or plot beat, it has to be justified and understandable. So they have done the writer's work of make sure that everything has a basis. Otherwise, it will seem like we're just like, wouldn't it be cool if?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, wouldn't it be cool is a way to write things. It's not a good way. Unless the thing that you think would be cool, like you said, has to be established, has to be worked through, because otherwise it's just like, I don't know why that happened. It was just neat.
Yeah.
No, we want everyone to understand why someone says this or why they feel this way. So I think they have done that. And I will say maybe the only problem I have with it so far, and it's not even a problem really because she's not the focal point. She's acting her ass off, Amanda Plummer. But until they really reveal what's going on, the villain is just villain. Is just capital V villain.
Yeah,
that's I want to destroy them. Why? You'll find out. Get me Jack Crusher. Why? Oh, just you wait.
Yeah, that is something I'm okay with, just because they have given us such good writing for the questions we've had so far.
By the way, you know, I have a bad theory about that too.
Let's hear it.
The Jack Crusher. Yeah, no, the Jack Crusher we've been watching is not the original Jack Crusher. I'm
afraid of that too. I kept thinking he is
because of those visions he's having, and he's seeing it through changeling vision. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, plus in folklore, you know what a changeling is, don't you, Chad?
Gollum?
No. A changeling is elves, fairies steal human babies because they want them, and they leave their own warped or unwanted babies behind that then humans raise. It was basically folklore way of explaining why kids would end up being bad or perhaps mental issues. They would sit there going like, oh, well, your baby got replaced by a changeling, so you got this knockoff. So it's a swap out. And that's what a changeling is. So basically, I think Jack Crusher, either the original was killed or the changelings have him and swapped out their spy. He's there not knowingly.
So he's got all of Jack's memories.
Yeah, basically. I think he's like a sleeper agent.
Yeah.
A changeling sleeper agent, and he doesn't even know.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that's why he has these visions of him killing the crew while he's in a Starfleet uniform. It's possibly like that's his mission, and probably it'll be Heritage Day, and that's probably the whole thing. But I think either at the end, there's the real Jack Crusher is fine, or at the end, swap out changeling Jack Crusher is like, I choose to be Jack Crusher. I don't want to be evil changeling guy. So his character will not really be Picard and Crusher's son. He will be a changeling swap out for Picard and Crusher's son.
Gosh, if there is another Jack that they're going to keep around, they kind of got to introduce him soon.
I think it would be a swap out that would be like, hi, I'm the same guy. It's just I'm not a changeling version. So I don't think it would be difficult. Like, I was kept in stasis, or he is dead, and this guy will be like, I really wish you were my real parents.
Yeah. Well, it makes me wonder too, like the Amanda Palmer's villain, she is a changeling herself, which was made clear in this last episode. But before that, it looked like she just had a changeling attached to her that she had to cut off in order to talk to it, which was weird.
Oh, well, I think,
but now weirdly, I think maybe they're two changelings kind of blended together in one body.
I don't think that's the case. I think because they made the big deal about Crusher saying there are new changelings. These are totally different, and they are. So I think the whole chopping off the hand so she can talk to changeling control, I think it's like hive mind. I don't think that that's literally she is of two things, because she reabsorbs it too.
Right. Okay.
It's just like, in order for her to it's instead of them having subspace communications, it's like, I need to talk to my boss. Whack.
Yeah.
Hi, how you doing? I'm your boss.
It's Jerry Lewis.
Hey. What are you doing? Nice. Oh, Vladik. Oh, Valdik. I don't remember your name. Listen, do the thing and kill the Crusher. I need you to find the Crusher. Never liked Picard. Can you kill Picard too? Nang, nang, nang. You're a nice lady with the hair, so you ever thought of maybe combing back a little, because it's in your face. Now I love the idea that
this could go on for a whole hour.
Oh, and it will. But I love the idea of the head of the changelings being a Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
I saw the Enterprise show and I was like, wow! We amuse ourselves, Chad. That's the important thing. Anyway, don't get me on a Jerry Lewis kick, but I think that's the case with her, and I that's me just trying to predict how many more episodes. It's only
4.
Oh, is it 10? Okay, good.
But that makes a lot of sense. And
just the changeling concept. I was like, oh, they've never really addressed that as the origin of the name for that species.
Yeah, but
it's a good idea.
Yeah, but that thing you brought up of her cutting off the arm is some kind of hive mind communication thing. That makes sense too. And that was a question where I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. But because the writing up to that point had been so good, I was like, I have faith. You know, I'm confident that they're going to explain that at some point.
By the way, I love Shaw.
Shaw's great. Yeah, he turned out to be really great.
Yeah, a very layered character.
Yeah.
But I also love how casually racist everyone is towards changelings. It's because I think at one point Shaw's like going, I don't know. Then they go back into the goo. They go in a big vat of goo and they come out and they're all just goo people. And you're like, okay, that's real cool, man. Odo was awesome. So you need to back it up. All right.
Yeah, I keep wondering at some point, are they going to bring up Odo?
Well, they have. I mean, he's been on screen.
Oh, that's right.
When they looked up changelings, he's the picture that comes up.
Yeah.
They are trying to state. It's just like, people, this is going to be a weird segue, but that Hogwarts Legacy game that came out, which I haven't played, but I do love Harry Potter books, and there's all the J.K. Rowling stuff, and I enjoyed the movies. And people really see the goblins in that universe as being some sort of anti-Semitic characters. And the game Hogwarts Legacy, which came out, makes a point of saying good goblins, bad goblins, but also they're not Jews. Just the fact that they run the bank in the Harry Potter universe. People going, clearly they're Jews. Well, no, but the game is like going, there are extremists who do terrible things. There's this terrorist organization. Then there's just nice goblins you meet. And with the changelings, it's a similar thing where they're going, they're trying to make it very clear in Picard, these people, she and her minions and all that, they're not indicative of the changeling race. They are their own thing. Most changelings are welcomed in Starfleet, and Odo is, a prime example. He's a very famous one. So it's great because you don't want them painting all of them with the one brush and go, oh, the changelings are an evil people that's, shapeshift. Can't trust those shapeshifters. It's like, well, one of them was really cool.
Yeah.
Just like with Worf for a long time, the whole thing was Worf was being held up as an example of look, there's a good Klingon. And he's like, actually, most Klingons are honorable and blah, blah. Like,
right. Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
By the way, how badass is Worf?
Worf is great. Yeah.
I thought they got me twice. I thought they killed him. And then I was afraid that Riker was on a suicide mission and that was going to be the end of Riker.
Yeah. I was both those moments was like, no. So I'm pretty sure they're probably both. I guess maybe somebody might die at the end of the season.
I could see somebody dying.
But they're probably all going to make it, I would imagine. I hope so.
The whole thing with Riker and then having Troy as a hostage at the end, I'm like, that's harsh. But I also think they've dumped so much grief. I mean, I think Picard will be the one who dies. I think that's kind of the whole point is like, finally, this is his last. But you don't have Riker and Troy's son dying, and then they've got the one daughter left, and then he's going to die. No, they're not going to do that.
Right.
They're going to get their happy ending.
What do you think, getting back to the Jack Crusher theory?
Yeah.
What do you think there's a possibility that there never was a real Jack Crusher? That maybe he's grown up?
I think the only problem with that would be Beverly Crusher herself. So in other words, unless they messed up her mind and she goes, no, I totally remember giving birth to our child.
Maybe she did, but it was completely their
like they implanted him?
Yeah. To trick her into thinking that it was a biological son.
I don't think so. I think it would have been a swap out at some point. Either it could have even been during his college years or whatever, when he was just freewheeling around. Or if it was when he was very young, because she did say, he's always had these nightmares? I think she says that.
Probably, yeah.
So if that's the case, maybe they did a very early swap out, and because he's one of the next generation of changelings, that because she's his mom and a doctor, she's been giving him medical checkups his whole life, and he's always passed as human. So I can only assume that it would have to have been, early.
Yeah. The reason I mentioned that is that I'm kind of not. They could just reveal that the real Jack Crusher was killed, which would be a drag too.
Yeah, of course.
But also, it's going to be awkward at this point. I mean, they could do it. They've got time. You still have half the season to go. But to reveal that there's a whole other Jack that we need to get to know, but there's this other guy that we were already attached to. And it's like, well, what if there is no other character?
Dude, that becomes.
What if it's just him and he's the hero?
Becomes the '90s Spider-Man clone saga.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that.
That was very controversial. It was a clever idea. So sit back. Late '60s, early '70s, they had the Jackal, one of Spider-Man's villains, who was a brilliant, was one of his university professors, who was a brilliant biochemist or whatever. Essentially, the whole thing was Peter Parker sees Gwen Stacy walking around, and he knows she's dead. And he's like, wait a minute, that can't be Gwen. And then he tracks her down. Turns out she has been cloned. That his professor, who is secretly the Jackal, cloned Gwen Stacy. And then he's like, oh my God. And there's this big thing where he fights the Jackal. And at one point, looks like kind of a Spider-Man's dead thing. He's not. He's fine. He defeats him. The clone of Gwen dies heroically again or something. And oh no, not again. So years later, they get the idea of like, oh, now another Spider-Man shows up, and it turns out, oh, that guy, the Jackal, he created a clone of me, and he thinks he's the real Spider-Man. And then they go and they fight, and what made it controversial was that at the end of the fight, the Jackal reveals, he goes, no, the one you think is a clone is the original, because I've had his body since that fight years ago. You, who've been walking around and is currently married to Mary Jane and all that stuff, you've been the clone this whole time. And he's like, oh, what the what?
Yeah.
And the readers also went, what the fuck? Our Spider-Man has been a fake this whole time. And so the original Spider-Man's like, I don't want to intrude on your lives because you've had this life. I haven't. So he changes his name to Ben Reilly as a tribute to Uncle Ben and so forth. And he dyes his hair blonde. And he starts having his own life. And supposedly he's the original Spider-Man who's been out of, who's been hidden away for years. And he becomes the Scarlet Spider. He still has his powers. So does the other guy. They get along. Clone Pete and Ben Reilly are pals. They're like, you stay over there and we'll be over here. And the fans are like, we just don't like that concept. That all these
this isn't helping.
Yeah, all these years of stories, and we've been reading about a clone, and the clone married MJ. So then they did a retcon where they're like going, just kidding. Turns out the Ben Reilly clone really was the clone. I mean, it wasn't the original. And so they swap it out, and basically it was Marvel going, we're very sorry, readers. We're very sorry to have upset you.
Yeah.
So the Clone Saga is kind of infamous because it was a clever idea, but they just didn't anticipate how upset readers would be. And it's kind of the same thing here. It's like, yeah, it would suck if we get a Jack Crusher that we haven't been hanging out with, and he's like, I've been held by the changelings for 20 years or something. And
well, here's another possibility too. I'm
ready. Hold on. I'm ready. Okay, I'm ready.
Maybe there is only one Jack Crusher, but he has been half or partial.
Half?
Well, he's been a changeling, or at least some kind of changeling DNA in him this whole time. But that would be a little cleaner. So I just don't like the idea. This is similar to the clone thing you're talking about for sure.
Yeah.
I don't.
You are really struggling with it, and it's all just a fan theory of mine.
Yeah. I wanted to my control. This is all obviously part of the writing that they're deliberately confusing us right now. But I don't like the idea.
This would be like DC saying that actually Krypton never existed and that Kal-El was a government project that got loose, and he has these fake memories from a dead planet. That would be if no, I'm just saying if DC did that, I'd be like, fuck you, and I'd be kicking shit over.
Yeah, because we've already had these great character moments between Jack and PICARD in the show.
They could still be genuine.
I want that to be the real Jack.
But I know you do.
So maybe it's both.
Well, no, I think that even if it's the fake one, it doesn't mean that these interactions are fake. Because if he's a sleeper agent, he has no idea he's not the real Jack Crusher either.
But
it's like
the real Jack didn't have
Candidate.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
The real Jack didn't have it.
But the emotional responses he's had to his mother and to PICARD would still be totally genuine. And maybe he's just as shocked when it comes out like, I'm what now?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to kill everybody?
The thing I don't like is like
if Jack Crusher we like.
If we're introduced to another Jack Crusher who hasn't had that character development.
I know.
That's what I'm not going to like.
That just means PICARD's got two boys and they hang out. It's going to be awesome. He's like, Jack 2, let's go to the movies. And they just hang out and drink beers. It'll be awesome.
So that's why I'm saying if there is going to be a second Jack, they've kind of got to introduce him like now.
Ooh, quick Google search the actor, see if he has a twin. Because if he has a twin, it's like they'll do a whole thing where they don't even have to split screen. It'll just be literally the two brothers going, who are you now? I'm you. What?
So do you have what is your prediction? Do you think there's going to be
I actually, well, I mean, since that was my theory, I think it will be a unknowing changeling double agent.
But do you think the real Jack will be dead or in stasis?
That's the thing I can't predict. Yeah. I do agree it would be awkward to shoehorn it in. I think if he's not, because then it would be like, well, how are they going to deal with? How is he going to deal with? probably he's dead. But it'll probably be a thing where Beverly and Picard at the end of it are like, we accept you because you are like our son. So we're not going to hold the fact that you are actually a changeling against you. We think you're just awesome. And let's go to Riker's planet and have some of those freshly made pizzas.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too. And I kind of, that is kind of interesting too, because it takes
things. It'd be grim, but it would simplify it if the changelings just like, we don't need biological Jack Crusher. We got his DNA code. Now the changeling has it. So get rid of the original. And this is the only one that exists.
It also kind of would address the very sort of convenient idea of, well, this is Picard's son, now we've got Picard Jr., who's going to continue.
But he would be. I have a feeling that changeling would say, I'm not going to change.
Sure.
This is who I feel I am.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's probably going to continue as Jack Crusher, but probably not take the name Picard, for example.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which would be okay,
Picard.
But that would be
Jack
like,
Picard.
I'm Ray Skywalker. I don't know.
Oh.
Sorry.
No, I mean, the thing that kills me about the sequel trilogy is there are good ideas in there and there are good characters and they fuck them up. It's just like with the Star Trek reboot. I think the actors are great. Daisy Ridley all day long. She had me from the first scene, but I felt bad for her. Some of the stuff they give her to say. And it's like the way they did Poe and Finn, just there ought to be a law because they were such great characters and they get nothing.
Well, in her character, especially, it's sad because they never really knew what her character was until like they wrote the last script, or at least they weren't in agreement about who she was.
They weren't in agreement. And the whole thing that Ryan Johnson was trying to do in Last Jedi was to get rid of the idea of it being a family line, chosen one, King Arthur kind of story. Mm-hmm. It's like Rey is extremely powerful and a new Jedi, but she doesn't need to be connected to the Skywalkers at all. And I loved that. And she's actually not, even in the end, but making her a Palpatine product.
Still,
you're like, dude, stop it. It should not just be that two families essentially have been the light and the dark of that universe forever. Rey should have remained the child of nobodies, but who rises to her own destiny. Oh, anyway. I'm angry. Now I'm angry. We've now talked for 48 hours about this, so we didn't even get to Mando.
No, that's fine because
Picard is a filling meal.
Yeah. So maybe next month when Picard is done, we'll come back and revisit.
Agreed.
This topic and see if we were right about Jack Crusher.
Yeah, I have really upset you.
No, I'm intrigued now.
The wheels are spinning in the noggin.
I figured there had to be some kind of changeling DNA in him.
All these hints with his weird visions. Yeah. And how upsetting was it with, the one with him where it opens with him slaughtering the crew and he's wearing the Starfleet uniform, and then later in the episode it's like, put that on. He's like, no. And that went on for 8 minutes. Literally. No.
Who was the old-timey character who was in the cartoon sometimes? We go, no.
Oh, that was the bashful vulture. I can't remember what his name was, but no.
You naughty boy.
No. I love Warner Brothers cartoons, stupid characters, because they did stupid characters better than anybody.
Yeah.
I love that guy, and I love the I like a whole lot of lumps. The lion that gets like, how many lumps of sugar do you want in your tea? He's like, I like a whole lot of lumps.
Better give me a lot of lumps. A whole lot of lumps.
And then they smack him on the head. Oh God, so good.
What about the ones that are sort of redoing the of Mice and Men? Or there's
yeah.
George.
Gee, George, you're real smart, aren't you, George?
Yeah, real smart.
Yeah.
The big dopey guy in the little.
I will stroke him and pet him and name him George.
Right.
Which is them making fun of Lon Chaney Jr.'s performance.
Go on, George.
We're gonna have a little place.
We gotta have a little place.
Which actually is the only good thing he ever did as far as an actor, but in the classic Of Mice and Men movie with Burgess Meredith.
And then down on a flat, we're gonna have a field of alfalfa.
For the rabbits. And I get to tend the rabbits.
But yes, and I will stroke him and pet him and call him George.
I ain't no bunny rabbit!
Anyway, that's a weird note to go out on. Let's wrap up because again, I'm hungry. But the thing that we did talk all about Star Trek today and a lot about Picard. But the reason is, if you guys aren't out there aren't watching it, season 3 of Picard is better than most of the Star Trek movies that have come out. It's very satisfying. I mean, more so if you were a crazy fan of Next Generation, but even if you weren't, come on, man. It's just so good. It's good sci-fi, including them thinking their way out of some stuff. That whole thing with them floating kind of powerless and then opening up to catch the waves of energy from. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And then it's a brand new
Trek. Yeah.
Classic Trek. And then that is the birth of a brand new cosmic species. And it's like new life to explore. And I'm like, oh God, the chills, the goosebumps when that was Crusher who says it's like to seek out new life. And I'm like, stop it.
Yeah. They are almost literally hitting all the right notes.
All the right notes. Except for that B flat.
Yeah.
Very out of that was like not what I wanted. All right. Well, I will leave because we action items, you brought that up and I've never really thought about that. Let us know, guys, if you were enjoying Picard season 3.
Yes.
Also, an alternative question, and this one came written in from one of our listeners as a suggestion from, I need to check it, from, Sure. This listener would like to know, do you believe in life after love?
I was like, wait, I don't think I've seen that.
Did you see how far I went for that damn joke?
Yeah.
Cher would like to know if you believe in life after love. So please let us know if you're watching and enjoying Picard season 3 and if you believe in life after love.
Thank you.
It's like I killed your will to live. Thank you.
Every week. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you next week.
We will.